Hi there, I'm Eric Wyrd Sjerven, Gothi of the Wyrd folk here in East Texas. I'd like to welcome you to the Raven's Call, which is a heathen-related podcast, show, whatever you want to call this, where I ramble on about different heathenry-related subjects. Some are more beginner, some are more advanced, some are just out there and kind of crazy. It's just kind of how my mind works. So, this is just a little glimpse into the mind of one Gothi here in East Texas. Keep in mind, all the views reflected on this particular show are my own. They're not necessarily reflective of the views of heathenry as a whole, greater heathenry, or however you want to refer to it. There's as many different versions of heathenry as there are different heathens in the world, essentially. Of course, hardcore recons would argue with me on that one, but that's for conversation for another day. All right, so here's the deal, guys. Today I want to get into one of my more abstract and out there kind of things. Now, it's not really that out there. This is not one of those things where I'm like breaking new ground on anything. I'm basically making a simile. I'm likening one aspect of heathenry to something in another sphere that allows for a better understanding of the concept within heathenry. I do that a lot. You can look back at my science and heathenry thing and see that. I love my metaphors. I love my similes. Eric Wyrd Sjerven. I get my deed name from the poetry and everything. I do a lot of that. I love to play with words. I love to make those connections, those mental images and things. Today, we're going to venture into a concept in the greater sphere of Wyrd that I think I may have finally gotten an image in my head that makes sense, that I understand. And it helps me to understand kind of why this particular phenomenon within Wyrd works the way that it does. Okay? Now, this is a little bit more of an advanced thought, so it does require a rudimentary knowledge of Wyrd and how that works. So, the Cliff's Notes version. Super Cliff's Notes, because I could do an entire hour-long video on Wyrd and not even scratch the surface. Super Cliff's Notes is that Wyrd is the energy that makes up the now. All of our actions, all of our deeds, our decisions, all of our energies in the present moment. Wyrd. Okay? This is the web of Wyrd. You hear reference to Wryrd's well, Brunner, and this is Wryrd's well of Wyrd. This is where Wyrd is recorded and becomes Orlog, that which has come before us, the primal layer that is laid down in that well. Now, the thing about the well is the symbol of the well. It's not like the old school stone well that you drop the bucket into and draw the water up. No, that's a stagnant kind of well. This is like a wellspring. This is something where the waters are constantly moving and churning. It's bubbling up from the roots of Yggdrasil, and they feed the roots of now. Okay? Anyway, like I said, Cliff's Notes version, I'm not going to get into all of that. I will come back to that and do a separate video on the Well of Wyrd if you guys are interested. So, today what I want to talk about is what I call gravity points or gravity wells in the web of Wyrd. Okay? Now, Wyrd is typically described in a couple of different ways, like Brunner, which I just discussed, which is the well of Wyrd. There's also the web of Wyrd. Okay? Now, the wellspring helps as a metaphor for the transition of now into past, of the transition from the in the moment becoming the history, from Wyrd becoming Orlog. Now, it is different when you're talking about Wyrd itself, just where we are right now, the tapestry of Wyrd that we are weaving constantly. Now, in that act of weaving, we are tying our threads, our Wyrd, to the threads of other individuals. We tie Wyrd, we share Wyrd with those people that we have meaningful interactions with. Now, realistically, you share Wyrd with everyone whom you share time and space with. Just simply by being there, they are now a part of your history. They are in that moment in your life, that little snapshot, they exist there. There's a tiny speck of their Wyrd influencing yours. And we do. Our Wyrd influences the Wyrd of others, and their Wyrd influences us. That's just kind of how it works. Now, there are certain things, like the longer you spend in a certain area, the more weird you have tied to it. The more meaningful the interactions you have, the more weird you have tied to it. And therefore, you end up with like individuals, people, like our innengard, our inner yard. Our innengard are those individuals with whom we share a great deal of weird. We're sharing our lives with them. And so they see a great deal of our lives. We share meaningful interactions, not just, meeting somebody on the street. I can see the same guy pass into the coffee shop every day. Yes, we share weird. Yes, as long as we recognize each other and bond in that moment, he's coffee guy, But that's a minute thread. That's not meaningful in any way other than that brief interaction. It would be missed if it didn't happen. If he just disappeared one day and I never saw him again, yes, I would notice his absence, but it wouldn't necessarily hurt or it wouldn't be that heavy. Weird leaves a weight. When you tie your weird together very strongly, then the absence of that individual, the absence of that place, the absence of that which you have tied weird is felt. So there is a weight to weird, especially in the way that it is built and developed. Okay, so let me see if I can put this really weird abstract thought into a semblance of sense. Okay, like a web, the more times you pass a thread over either a junction or between 2 points, the stronger that link is going to be. Okay? It's like more threads in a rope. It builds and builds and builds. The people that you spend the most time with, you build a very strong connection. You share a great deal of weird, and that connection has weight. The more weird you amass, the more mass there is to the thread. Literally, I'm looking at the mass of the thread on a metaphysical level, because this is where things go wonky, okay? My postulation is that individuals or places, events, things with which you share a great deal of weird create something of a gravity well that then draws the individual back to this fixed point of weird. Now, I'm not specifically looking at space-time, okay? But I do like the graphic of space-time in explaining this particular phenomenon, okay? So, I'm not good at imprinting graphics and stuff yet. I may try to insert something here. If I do, I'll cut this out. Otherwise, you're gonna get to see this. Look. All right, so we have visual aids today. Check it out, isn't that cool? Now, seriously guys, this is what I'm thinking, okay? If this is the web of weird, all right, the more mass we put into a single point in weird, the heavier it gets. So it begins to weigh down the web. And the more you weigh the web down, the more this funnels energies into it, just like space-time, okay? That right there, this graph itself is the gravitational influence of a perfectly spherical, uniformly spherical mass in space-time. So if that was like a planet there, this would be the gravitational well created by said spherical figure. So this serves as our point in weird, okay? This serves as the greater tapestry. Now the reason that I say this is because you can skirt along this all the time, okay? And this is, let me give you a story as to why this came to mind. I used to work at a Renaissance fair, okay, back in the day. I drummed with a belly dance group there. I did swords, I did fire, I did all kinds of stuff. Fancy that, the dude doing a YouTube show used to perform at a Ren fair. Surprise, surprise. Okay, anyway, so I used to perform at this fair, but I performed there for like 2 decades of my life. I lived at this fair. I have memories there, friends there, exes there. Everything was tied up in this particular Renaissance fair, and it was a huge chunk of my life. And then I left the fair for a number of reasons. And then the fair left us for a number of other reasons. Not completely separate reasons, though. Essentially, the Renaissance Fair, at which I spent a great deal of my childhood and young adulthood, just disappeared. And I went back to visit the site a few months ago. The site's still there, but no one's been out there in quite some time. It's all overgrown. All of the buildings were derelict and run down and broken down, shambles. And I felt this deep sense of loss, this deep sense of longing, because of the connection that I had to this place. And its absence was felt, that weight of the Wyrd I had built in this place. Because I built a tremendous amount of Wyrd in this one singular location, and I could feel it deep in my soul. You know, I could feel my connection to that place. I could feel the loss that its absence gave to me, because I could see that it would never again be that which I remembered it to be. It was gone. But it was the memory of that place. It was the Wyrd that I shared with it, the weight of that Wyrd, that drew me to even come back to the site in the first place, because I could have just kept driving by. I had no business going up there. It's actually private property. I probably shouldn't have gone up there. But I had to see it. I had to go back. I had to try. And why did I have to try? Because I got caught in the gravitational pull of a gravity well in Wyrd. Because I have so much Wyrd tied up into this place. I've got so much joined up and balled up in this particular location that the gravity of the place just pulled me in. Now, individuals do this all the time. This is what we call nostalgia. When you're flipping through your yearbook from high school and you see all these people, you see all these faces, and you suddenly feel that, and it definitely feels like a physical pull, almost like your soul is being pulled towards this book, being pulled towards these people. That is because that is where you share this Wyrd, and it impacts you both psychologically and physically, as well as, I guess, spiritually. You are pulled towards this gravitational point. This is why people go back to places that they remember, that they value, that had some meaning to them, because they shared so much Wyrd there. Think about how many times you hear about people that go back to visit the house they grew up in. You know, for instance, this is another story, another example of this going on. We have a family reunion with my mother's side of the family, the Gerver side. And every time we go up there for the family reunion, if we have it in this particular town, deep in East Texas, it's just a little bitty town where the family grew up. And every time they go, they have to go by and see the house. There was this one particular house where my great-grandmother, I think it was my great-grandmother, who lived there for ages. A lot of the older generation came up there. It was a family house. It had deep meaning there, deep value. Grandkids ran through there, nieces and nephews, cousins. This was the epicenter of that family at that time. It was the seat. And so much Wyrd was shared there. So much power was stored there that they can't help but go back and see it, to feel that connection again, because it's still glowing there. It's still there. There's still a connection, because all of that Wyrd that was built up and deposited in that place, all that energy is still welled up there. So they're drawn back to it. The body seeks the familiar. We know this from biology. We know this from psychology. The mind, the body, homeostasis, we seek familiar. It's just how humans operate. Familiarity breeds comfort. And so we seek that out. And we seek out those things that the body is familiar with, that the mind is familiar with, that the soul is familiar with. And that is this well of Wyrd aspect. You know, we have got so much tied up here, so much energy, so much of ourselves tied up into this place that it creates a gravitational pull in the here and now. Now, these wells, these gravity wells, these deposits of Wyrd can dissipate over time. Now, they will always have been. So they are part of Orlog. You can't change the fact that they occurred. But they will dissipate in strength over time, and their weight will diminish. This is it sinking into Wyrd's well, because you're not actively feeding that connection. There's an excerpt from the Havamal. I don't remember exactly which stanza it is off the top of my head, and I always paraphrase it. But it paraphrases essentially to "Don't let the grass grow tall on the road to a good friend." This is, don't let that connection, that Wyrd connection that you have between each other, lessen over time, because it'll dissipate. Nidog constantly gnaws at the roots of Yggdrasil. He's constantly gnawing at reality. He is entropy. He is the return of active force to its entropic state, to the dissipation of reality. That's another video I will do here coming up on Nidog and how I see him and his role and the role of the Rite of Return in battling that. But come back to that, okay? Nidog is constantly gnawing at reality and dissipating things. He's returning them to their base form, chaos, taking them from form to none. So these bonds of Wyrd will break down over time. Okay, this we share. They will always have been, so they'll be recorded in Orlog. They'll be part of the well. Those energies will be there. They'll be pulled in, but it doesn't mean that it's going to continue in the now as an active connective force unless we continue to feed it. Okay, it's why you have to keep the gift exchange with friends going. This is why you have to keep physical connections between people going. This is why you have to feed relationships if you want them to last. The gnawing, the entropy that sets in will chew that away, and it'll dissipate and it'll lessen. These wells, these well springs that form that little bit right there down at the bottom, they will eventually break down over time, and this well will of course return back to a flat plane. The idea behind that being that after enough time, after enough generations, whatever, the gravity well will not have the same effect, especially since it's Wyrd energy that's tied specifically to you. Like, for instance, if I were to ever have kids and then grandkids thereafter, you would see, like, my high school that I went to, my alma mater, means a great deal to me. My ties there are strong. And if I transition those ties to the next generation, then they will want to go back and see the school that Papa went to, etc., etc., etc. And same thing with the grandkids going to see the school the grandpapa went to. However, beyond that, it begins to dissipate to such an extent that no one's even going to remember that was the school that I went to, let alone want to go visit it. It doesn't have that same pull for them. It's dissipated. And the same thing can happen to us in a singular lifetime. There are things that carry a great deal of weight for us, but if the waters there are tainted by a negative reaction, we may never want to go back. There may actually be a repelling force. But even then, psychologically, I find that people still get drawn back into it. It's just the fear of being drawn back into it that they rebel against. It's not necessarily a repulsion force, it's a revulsion. They find it revolting, so they avoid it. It is an avoidance mechanism. They begin to feel the pull, the slip down into that cone, They'll be riding along life just fine right here, Doing just fine out here. And then all of a sudden, let's take child abuse, for example, okay? Let's take an individual, and I know it's dark, but I work in foster care, so I'm used to going there, okay? So, this kid who was abused, okay? Abuser, right here. This is the individual that they were dealing with. This is the individual that hurt them, okay? They can be rocking along, having a great life, and then all of a sudden, they catch wind that this individual is back in town. They begin to hear names. They begin to hear stories that continue to pull them down and down and down. Now, once they realize this individual's here, they're going to try and escape. They're going to try and go away because they don't want to see that individual. They don't want to go there. in some cases. In some cases they do because they don't resist that pull. They go there. Nonetheless, because the mind seeks some kind of closure, as well as a number of other psychological phenomena that occur there. But, and this is the case with any kind of abuser, any kind of abuse situation, they begin to feel this pull back into this well here, and they can't resist it. They try to. Some of them can. If they catch it early enough, they can get out of it. Some can slip so far down into the hole that they're right back in the situation that they left from and cannot seem to leave it. Same thing goes when you have built up a sufficient amount here and you attempt to flee from this in the first place and you're unable to, such as battered women, codependent relationships, things like that. This occurs a lot right here, okay? But the same thing can be said for like exes, you know? You spend a lot of time with an individual, especially on a romantic basis, a lot of meaningful exchange of weird. You have, boom, right there. You've developed that wellspring, that gravity well, which means the next time your ex is in town, you feel that pull to them. You don't necessarily give in to it, but you feel the pull. You begin to wonder what they're up to. You begin to think about them. And if they ever actually enter into your sphere, their gravitational pull can suck you right in. A lot of people know that pull to, especially with exes, because they're exes for a reason, can see that pull, feel that pull begin and go, nope, that's bad news. I'm out, deuce. Some people can't avoid it. Some people don't even try because they remember it was a good thing. Ended on weird terms as opposed to, you know, negative terms. And so going back down into the gravity well is not necessarily a bad thing, okay? The gravity well is not, that's one thing I want to say, the gravity well is not always a bad thing when dealing with weird, okay? Sometimes these are wonderful people. Like right here, that's my mother, okay? I have a huge pull to my mother. Same thing with my father and my brothers. My family that I grew up with, I have a fantastic relationship with them. I love them. Love you, Mom. Love you, Dad. Love you, bros. That's them right there. That is a wellspring. That's a gravity well. I have no problem jumping feet first into because I love these people and this is a good place for me. All right. Not everybody has that. Okay. Not everybody had that experience. For some people, it's a very negative experience, but you cannot deny the amount of weird you have tied up with the family of origin. So it's not unusual for people that grew up in a negative family of origin to avoid it like the plague because they feel that pull and they know it is a negative thing, whereas I feel that pull and I feel it as a positive thing. So I love going back and seeing my family. I love interacting with my family. That pull is a good thing for me, you know? Same thing with like if you go to the amusement park that your family used to go to as kids. Not that we ever went to an amusement park because they're overpriced and not our thing. But it works as an example. If there was a huge amusement park that you guys went to every year and it was a thing for y'all, you made it special, you tied special bands of weird around it, then going back there as an adult has meaning to you. You feel that weird energy that you have tied to it and it serves as a beacon. You want to go back. You want to take your kids to it because your parents took you to it, kind of thing. These bands of weird energy that we tie into a place, those are residual pieces of ourselves. You know, we exist in the now, and these are the energies in the now that we share with each other. You know, if we sit and we drink around the fire, we are sharing weird. If we work together on a project, we are sharing weird. The minute we do something that can be remembered, positively or negatively, it's a moment of weird. It is a moment that's recorded into Orlog. And so these things build up over time. They create masses that create gravity wells that then suck us back in. Like I said, it can be a bad thing. It can be a good thing. The gravity well is just a gravity well. It's simply a thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's positive or negative. It also doesn't necessarily mean anything in the grand scheme of heathenry other than the fact that, hey, I noticed this exists. You know, I noticed that this is what nostalgia is. I noticed that this is why when you drive past your ex's house, you can't help but look at it and wonder what she's up to or he's up to or whatever. You know, this is why, you know, when you go by that high school friend that you knew, like say you're walking through the airport and you see your high school buddy from way back in the day, y'all used to hang out all the time, and then you can't help but want to run up and say, hey, how are you doing? Because there's that pull. It's a gravitational pull between two individuals. I was talking a lot about that gravity well being a singular point, okay? That's when we're talking about like an individual location, something like that, something you can be pulled to. Individuals themselves, the diagram doesn't really work the same way, because what it is the gravitational pull between two objects. And I don't have a diagram for that one, but these are two individuals that will continue to be pulled together and together and together. I was having a conversation with my buddy at the cigar lounge the other day, and he was talking about all of these individuals that he knew from high school that he has run into in the years since then. All these individuals with whom he tied Wyrd as a child, and some meaningful interactions in a lot of ways, because he valued a lot of these interactions and a lot of these people in ways that I didn't get to, because I didn't have that level of interaction with them. And so there were like 700 people in my graduating class. It was ridiculous. But, and that may be a bit of an exaggeration, but it's pretty close. He meets up with these people randomly, happenstance, in other states, in weird places. He meets people from his hometown. He was born over in, I think, the Philippines. And he meets people from there over here, or even in other countries, all the time. Like people he grew up with and knew and was good friends with. All of a sudden, boom, there they are in the middle of a crowded joint. And he can't help but reconnect with them. It's bizarre. It's odd. It's weird. We're tied together. And so gravity will continue to pull those individuals back together for who knows what reason. But enough is there that you'll continue to get pulled back into each other's spheres. Now, you may actively avoid each other's spheres. And I can't completely account for the instances where the exact opposite occurs. Like, for instance, I know someone who her first husband, things ended badly with, and so there's a negative reaction. And without any attempt at moving anything, they both live in the same area, and they haven't seen each other since the divorce. This was a long time ago, like a decade and a half, 2 decades ago. They split up, and yet in all of that time living in the same town, they have never once run into each other. She ran into his mom, I think, one time, but other than that, those two never crossed paths. And that's weird to me. That's odd. And I can't help but think maybe the reason behind this within the gravitational aspect of Wyrd is that the soul feels that tug ever so slightly. They recognize that gravitational presence in Wyrd, and therefore you subconsciously avoid it. Like without even realizing it, you avoid it. Even the slightest inkling. But then again, I don't know. It's all speculation at this point. But, and I could be completely off base. I mean, you guys are going to look at this video and go, this guy's cracked. He's crazy. He's been talking about half an hour about how Wyrd in the present operates somewhat like space-time and gravitational wells. And it's kind of crazy. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go. This is just a mind fire that's been going for me off and on. I think about these things. It's weird. Like I said, this particular channel is a chance to kind of look inside my head and see a little bit about how I see things. Maybe you enjoy it, maybe you don't. I'll find out in the reviews on this particular video. Let me know, guys. Check it out. If you like today's video, hit like down below. Subscribe, ding the bell. You have to ding the bell if you want to get all my updates. The way YouTube has changed their algorithms lately, if you don't ding the bell, you're not going to see everything that pops up. Okay? You can follow me on Twitter if you want to. It's laughable. I'm bad at Twitter, but I am on there. I just don't really do a whole lot, as I think my 3 followers will tell you. It's E_Sjerven. Check the title. Check the YouTube channel for how to spell my name. It's easier that way. You can find me on Facebook at Wyrd-Weaver Productions. It's an open group. I add everybody to it. So I don't vet, I don't check. If you guys are watching the show and want to be part of the conversation, jump on there, okay? There's all kinds of stuff on there. I recently put up a link to my Saraha thing, that goofy internet thing where you can go through and you could leave an anonymous evaluation. It's designed for different projects and whatnot, so supervisors can get anonymous kind of it's like a virtual recommendation box. You end up with that box on the wall that you're supposed to be able to write your recommendations or requests or whatever on and stick it in there. Review box, comment box, that's what I'm looking for. Like a digital comment box, but anonymous, so you can jump on there and do that. So it's up there if you guys want to leave some feedback. I like the silly stuff. I love it when people get on there and play around and just say some absolutely bizarre things. I'm into a lot of like Welcome to Night Vale, things like that. So I know some of my buddies will throw weird stuff out there because I like weird stuff. It's bizarre, so I enjoy that. But I also have got some really good constructive feedback out of it. And just some positive, regards from individuals that are really awesome, and they're good friends of mine, and they mean a lot to me. So check that out if you want to. Comments in the section below. The more you interact with my videos, the more videos like mine you will see. You will notice that my channel says I am similar to a couple of other channels. I think Arat Hagar is one. He does some great videos. Check him out if you're interested. I like his stuff, so free plug for his stuff. Not that he needs it. He's got tons of followers. And then I think Jackson Crawford's stuff also shows up as a similar to on the side there. So check those out. You can email me at esjerven@gmail.com. That's ESJERVEN@gmail.com. I will answer whatever emails I get. I'll answer, or at least try to interact with all of the comments in the section below. I try to interact with everything on the Facebook page if I can. Here's the deal, guys. Don't send me friend requests on Facebook, okay? I can't keep straight who are heathens that I've met at different events and who are individuals that just say, hey, there's Eric, I'm going to friend him on, you can follow me on Facebook, but don't send me friend requests unless we actually know each other, because I've got so many people on my friends list right now, it's ridiculous. That's why I created Wyrd Weaver Productions, so I can interact with you guys and know that you guys are tied to the channel. And that way I can know, hey, this is the audience, and this is probably what they know based on what I've shown them, and hey, they would find this interesting, let's throw it out there. I break all my new videos up there. A number of you guys probably get the video from that feed, except for the ones that get it from the notifications below. So jump on there. I actually listen to viewer requests. The last 2 videos I did were based on viewer requests. There will be more coming up. This is just a mind fire that was lit, and I had to take care of it while I could. So anyway, I am rambling on, so I'm going to wrap things up. Thank you guys for watching the show. I really appreciate it. If anybody's actually made it to this point, you're awesome. You're the bomb, because most people, when they hear me say, if you like today's show, they kill it and move on, or at least my buddy Brandon does, because he's a stinkerhead. And yeah, that one's for him. If Rain has watched this far, Rain, sweetie, you're awesome. So thank you guys. Hail. Have a good day.